Welcome back to the game where we're headed into turn 8. Last turn was a bit crazy, and just to do a quick recap, we managed on the plus side to take Biak, to take Rabaul, and to take Marcus Island, which is our bomber base. On the opposite side of the ledger, Antero, after a lightning drive up the coast, was able to harness the forces of rebellion through the play of 2 Gandhi cards, one of which he managed to pull out of the discard pile. And India is now in revolt. The practical effect of that is both that we have lost 2 political will and also that we are losing a card for the rest of the game. But let's look a little bit more at some of the details operationally of what that means in terms of potentially getting back on track here in the CBI. You'll see that, let's just zoom in a little bit. So Antero has still got forces here in Dhaka. When India falls, a couple things happen. SEAC actually goes to the track. I brought it back now with reinforcements and reemplacements, but it actually does go to the track at the time that India revolts in the national status segment. At the same time, all Commonwealth forces get pulled out of India and end up in either Ceylon or the Maldive Islands over here. And one of the things that happens is because SEAC is off the map, then during the attrition phase, there is attrition over here, so reduced units go to the dead pile and full strength units get flipped. And so what you see here now is actually the situation after I brought on mostly replacements to beef these guys back up again. But we're sitting over here trying to figure out how to get back in. The interesting challenge is that the hexes in India, and in particularly Calcutta and Madras, which are the bases, are treated a little differently than any other hexes in the game in the sense that they are not friendly to either side. All other hexes are controlled by one side or the other. These 2 hexes at this point, they're not considered Japanese control because the Japanese are not in India. They're just hexes that are in revolt. And so the allies, if they want to get back into India, have to take them as if they were amphibiously assaulting a Japanese hex in the sense that they actually have to conduct an amphibious assault. They don't control the hex until after the amphibious assault is over. They can't simply just move in. So if you work it out, what it means is it takes a number of extra activations to get back to where you started from. So from a logistical perspective, getting kicked out of India is actually quite challenging. And one of the big questions for me as I start this turn, and I think I mentioned last time, I've never actually played India in revolt before, so part of the fun of this game is going to be to see how that works. But it looks to me like it's going to be a big challenge in terms of the activations to do it, and I'm struggling right now with whether it's worth it or not, whether I should basically just put all my eggs in the Pacific basket and forget about India, or whether I should in fact try to get back into the CBI. And I wrestle with that as the turn goes on and don't reach any firm conclusions, but you'll kind of see how my thinking unfolds here. Let's take a quick look at the R&R. As I mentioned, we took a number of replacements over here, mainly because at this point, while I hadn't decided for sure whether I want to really get back into the CBI, I also didn't have much need for replacements in the Pacific. So other than the U.S. Naval, which I did obviously take over here, the rest of my replacements, well, and actually I couldn't take ground replacements at all because I lost both ground replacements. So basically it was just the air replacements that went in over in the CBI. And then you'll see now that I had mentioned last time, I think, that I was unable to activate units at Biak from Oahu because of intervening ZOIs. We finally got rid of the ZOIs here. We killed the ZOI at Truk a couple of times last turn, and he pulled out of Eniwetok. And so now being able to activate from Central Pacific, it makes sense to actually start to build up a force over here that can be activated from either of the main HQs. And so I put the main fleet reinforcements here in Biak this turn. The Japanese, since this is turn 8, it's actually the biggest Japanese reinforcement turn of the game. You can see they've got a number of air units. They've also took some ground replacements. They get a ground reinforcement as well. There was a ground unit that came back from the track that had been overstacked in Dhaka that went back to Tokyo here. So they've got quite a few new units. One of the key things is at the end of the turn, they had no ZOIs in this area down here, so I potentially had a free shot at one or more of the ports down here, but that's not the case now. He's put ZOIs back, and so I'm going to have to fight for anything down there. Additionally, the subs hit again. We're getting to the point in the game where it's pretty much automatic. So he's got 6 cards, and he is down to 3 ASPs. We are up to 4 ASPs. Card-wise, you'll notice, again, I mentioned political will dropped from 4 to 2 when India went into revolt. The challenge there is that there are 2 cards left that can impact political will. I have not played the Doolittle Raid yet. That's worth 1 up. And Antero has somewhere in his deck the Tojo card, which is worth 2 down. And I did not draw the Doolittle Raid, so one of the first things I checked in with was to see if he pulled Tojo, because if he had Tojo, there was no point in continuing since he could immediately play it as his first card. Although here, the allies do go first. Just as a quick reminder, we're tied because I lost a card for Indian Revolt, and he lost a card for the sub-hit. We're tied at 6. When you're tied, the year tiebreaker applies, and when you're using the tiebreaker, the player who loses the tiebreaker is not allowed to use his FO card to trump and go first, and so it was an automatic first play for me, but obviously if he were able to play Tojo, that would still be game over. So in fact, he did not draw Tojo, so we're going to go and play things out normally here. And let's take a quick look at, first of all, let's do this, bring us back up to scale, and let me pull up the hand and show you what we've got. So this is quite an interesting hand here. Let me go over first and remind you that we've got Sextant here, which is going to get us out of ISR. We've been in ISR for a long time, but frankly, it hasn't made that much of a difference, given that I haven't had enough ASPs to use, for example, Army Corps in conjunction with Marines anyway. So, but the good news is now we're out of it, and we're actually out of it for the rest of the game, and we know we're out of it for the rest of the game because I know that he has played his last ISR card on me before I played my Get Out of ISR card. And we're now in 1944, which means if he has the Tojo counterpart to this card, he will have to play it as an event. He won't be able to reshuffle, so there's no way he can get an ISR card back into his hand. So we should be good for the rest of the game on ISR. We're also going to, if you look at this, we finally got 2 War in Europe cards. We're in 44, and they're both majors, so we're going to move War in Europe by 6 if we want to or need to. So let's take a look at the track here really briefly. So we are right now down at -3, so playing one of those majors is going to get us up to 0. That's not quite enough to get us our reinforcements advanced to where they should be. So we're going to end up wanting to play both of those War in Europe cards. That's going to take it up into positive territory, and because we're in 44, there's not going to be anything he can do about it for the rest of the game. So if you take a quick look at the Allied reinforcements, you'll see that we are in turn 8, and since we're delayed, that means we got these turn 7 reinforcements this turn. That means that next turn we're going to be able to count on getting both the turn 8 and turn 9 reinforcements. So we're really looking forward to that. The B-29 will help as well, obviously, since we've got a bomber base. At that point, that'll mean that we don't have to worry about progress of war too much more, because the bombers, if they hit, gain you a progress of war every turn they hit. So you can afford to, as long as you're out of danger territory, you can afford to not make progress of war when you're bombing successfully. This turn, however, we absolutely do have to make progress of war, because we don't have the Doolittle card. If we fail progress of war, then we are facing the possibility that we drop down to +1. We gain it back for the bombardment, for strategic bombing, assuming we hit, so we'd still only be at +2. So if he had the Tojo Resigns card next turn, that would also be game over if we fail to make progress of war. On the other hand, if we do make progress of war, we'll stay at 2. We'll go up to +3 for successful strategic bombing next turn. There's a 90% chance of that. And then if he played the Tojo card, we would be okay. So to avoid running the Tojo risk again next turn, we absolutely have to make progress of war this turn. How are we going to go about that? Well, you may remember that we have two options at this point. We control Rabaul, and Guadalcanal would give us all the Solomons. That's including Guadalcanal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more bases. So there is progress of war right there if we take Guadalcanal. The other option is we control Kwajalein. Inuiatak is not defended. If we take Inuiatak, and that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It gives us a ton more. So we can go either way, the Marshalls or the Solomons. We've got progress of war made for this turn and next turn, really totally uncontested. So we're in good shape on that front. So let's go back and just take a quick look again. So we've got these two cards that we can play whenever we want. There's nothing you can do about them. This is going to give us yet another reshuffle. So normally I wouldn't know whether he had Tojo or not, and so I would want to hold this off until the very end in hopes that he might be forced to play Tojo, and then I could play this, and that would make an A-bomb victory possible. But because we knew that a Tojo draw for him would mean that the game was over, I'm aware that he doesn't have Tojo, and so again, this card will be played as an OC, and it'll be a reshuffle, and that's that. So we've got 3 event cards here. Tradewind is a nice average event card. It's 2 OC on anybody. These two both have limitations. Axiom is Commonwealth or joint only, and for a logistics value of 5, it's probably the more useful, obviously, in the CBI, but the question is, are we going to be doing anything in the CBI this turn? Tarzan is kind of a funky one. It's NEHQ. Logistics value of 4. It's got the sort of weird condition of activating a Chinese army unit if there's one on the map and in HQ range. So we've got 3 event cards, but none of them are very biggies. So it's probably a good thing that we took the bomber base last turn. You remember I told you that I went for the bomber base because I had the cards to do it, and you can never count on having a good hand when you need it. You can count on having a bunch of good hands during the game, but they come when they come. And so if we were trying to get a bomber base this turn, it would be a lot tougher with these 3 event cards. Fortunately, we don't have to, so let's go ahead, and what I'm going to do here is just take care of progress of war on the first play. Actually, I lie. We both passed because we each had a pass, and there was nothing really urgent that either of us felt like we needed to do. My first play was a pass followed by Antero. Neither of us wanted to give up any initiative later in the turn, and so for my first actual operation, I decided to go ahead and play Tradewind. You'll see again it's 4 on Southwest or a 3 on Central Pacific, so I'm going to use it. So it's 6 either way. I'm going to use it on Southwest. Play that as the event, so Southwest for 6. I'm going to take care of my progress of war right away. We'll do that by sending the Marines down with an escort from the Belleau Wood, and you'll see in a second why I end up doing that. This situation is quite an interesting one, actually. Bunker Hill goes here, and I'm going to actually make a kind of a double play here, so I'm going to go attack Makassar. At this point, I'm thinking about trying to get into Kendari. I'd like to take out the air that's covering it, because if I take out the air, then I've got a free shot at it. So here's where things get interesting. This is a battle hex down here. It's within range of South Seas, but at this point, South Seas is under my ZOI. So South Seas is out of supply and can't react. And since South Seas is the only HQ that's within range of Guadalcanal, I'm thinking, okay, I don't have anything to worry about down here at Guadalcanal. Nothing can react to it. And initially, I didn't send the Belleau Wood down. Fortunately, I looked at this a second time, and you'll see why. Over here, what happens is I'm going to try and take out the ZOI at Makassar. I'm sending as much force as I can. I originally was even going to send an additional CV. The idea is this is the only hex that can be, the only battle hex that can be reacted to. Let's just make this battle C. The reason that truck can't be reacted to, normally combined fleet with a range of 13 is in range of truck and could react to truck, but with combined fleet down to a 12 after Yamamoto's gone, he's not within range of truck, so truck is not a reactable battle hex. This, however, is a reactable battle hex. It's within range of South HQ. And if you'll notice, this battle hex is within range of South HQ. The Zwiho, which is a CVL at Palau, is within range of South. So legally, he could activate this guy here and march him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's just within range of Guadalcanal. So if I did not send the Belleau Wood as an escort down here, then the Zwiho would be able to come down, react to this, automatically win the air-naval battle, and I'd be in trouble. As it stands, because this guy, let's get this out of the way, he's a 10. Worst case scenario, if Zwiho crits me and I miss in return, I'm a 7 against a 6. I still win the air-naval battle. So I caught that at the last minute, which probably saved my ass, because I have no doubt that Antero would have done exactly that if he had the opportunity. And so that's how I end up in this position. I'm basically, this is shutting down any reaction to that hex from anybody other than this guy here, and the Belleau Wood is enough to defend, and then we go ahead and try and take out the ZOI at Makassar there. And as it happens, I get surprise. This guy will die, and the air unit over at Makassar dies, and the Marines are an auto victory here. So basically, we've accomplished our progress of war for the turn. Again, taken the air off of Truk, and we've taken the air over Kendari so that we might have a shot at that, depending on what he does here. He has the perfect card to deal with it, though. He plays Flight Instructors, which gives him 3 air replacements. So he puts 1 unit in Okinawa. He puts another unit in Kendari to fill that hole down here, and he saves his 3rd. So again, there goes my opportunity for a free grab at Kendari. I go ahead at this point and play Sextant to finally get out of ISR, and it does also give me so let's go ahead here and play to get out of ISR. And I get 1 free air replacement, and I don't have many places to take it, so I take it on SEAC LRB over there. His next play is an OC to reorganize, and what he does is move the 16th reduced army here from Manila over to Leyte, and then the 3 full-strength armies that were at Dhaka come back to hold these resource hexes, and the Korean army, which had been at Akiab, moves forward to the border to hold the hex at Dhaka. So he's still trying to hang on to Burma and North India there, but he's clearly moving stuff back to prepare for the alternatives. And we'll talk a little bit more about winning the game and sort of strategies for how to play from a Japanese perspective. Probably not this turn, maybe next turn, but the idea is he's setting up to try to hold resource hexes here by pulling back from India at this point, since he's already put it into revolt. So with that, I then go and pull out the Manchuria card, and as I said earlier, I would normally not be playing that until the end of the turn, because given that it's 1944, I'd want to see if he had Tojo, and if he pulled out Tojo, then I could play this for the event. But since at this point I know he doesn't have Tojo, I go ahead and play this as an OC, which will cause another reshuffle. I actually debated quite a while around how to use the Manchuria card in conjunction with Axiom, which is the good CBI event card. And I was originally thinking that I was going to use the Manchuria card to set things up and then use Axiom to launch an attack. And then I decided that I really didn't want to do that, that I wanted to continue to stay focused on the Pacific, because I had really been thinking that there was probably not much chance that I could do anything in the CBI other than sort of diffuse my efforts and waste activations that might be better used if I were going to have any chance of winning in the Pacific. And so while I hadn't finally at this point decided that I wasn't going to do much in the CBI going forward, at least for this turn, I decided I was going to continue to stay focused in the Pacific. And so I used the Manchuria card to basically move forces forward. I put an LRB up here to support the Marines, and really ultimately not to be cover for the Marines so much as for the B-29s when they come on next turn. This is air moving forward, moved the 11th Corps up from, I think it was at Port Moresby, moved these guys up from the rear to put them in a position to easily grab Eniwetok. Here's another Marine Brigade, which is positioned to go do something offensive. And then I sent the CVL from Port Moresby over here just to provide another threat stack to keep them guessing. Not sure that that was an altogether great use of that card, but it's what I did in this particular situation. At this point, I decide that I want to go for an advanced base here in the form of Jolo, and it's basically a choice in the sense that it's what he's giving me. And that's one of the things as the allies that you have to deal with on a regular basis. The Japanese have a lot of ground forces, but not enough to cover everything. And in particular here, he's brought a lot of forces back because the CBI situation allows him to. And this is also a situation in which he had actually very low casualties in the CBI. So normally you'd probably have a little bit more option here at this point in the game if the CBI conflict was still going on and if it had been a higher casualty conflict. I have fewer options because that's not the case, but even here I do have a little bit of options. I mean, he's abandoned Eniwetok, which I can grab anytime, but I've decided that this looks like a tempting target. A couple things you'll notice, because it's only 4 hexes intervening back to Amboina, CVs at Jolo will be able to keep anybody at Jolo in supply because we've got a supply path here through Amboina. So that's nice. It's the beginning of trying to somehow cut him off here, and I still don't know how the heck I'm going to do it, but there's other air bases here, and there's a possibility of getting into Indochina. But again, you need to try and work the overlapping ZOI, so it starts to get a little tricky. It seems like this is a place, if you sort of think of it as trying to sneak through wherever he'll let you, this is an opportunity to go for what could be a freebie. It's not defended, but there are ZOI, so he's going to get a special reaction. But what I want to try and do is minimize the possibility of him making his rolls, because he's going to have to make 2 rolls. And so what I'm going to do to accomplish that is I'm going to go to Operation Tarzan here, play it as an OC. As an OC, it's going to be a 2 or less. Because I'm in ZOIs, it's going to be a 4 or less. But still, we'll play that for OC. So he's got a 50% chance of making the SR roll and a 50% chance of making the reaction roll for intercept. So he's only got a 25% chance of being able to stop me. So that's good. And what I then have to do is figure out, how do I maximize my probability of success here in the 1 in 4 cases where he actually is able to intercept? There's 2 options. I'm not going to go through all the calculations, but basically one option is that he reacts with a reaction stack that includes ground. That increases his probability of winning the ground combat, but makes it less likely he'll win the air-naval. The other possibility is he reacts with only air-naval, doesn't react on the ground. That increases his probability of winning the air-naval combat. What I have to do is look at both possibilities and figure out, do I want to, if I only go with the Marine Division, he's much more likely to react with this guy, and that will make it a lot tougher for me to win on the ground. If, on the other hand, I go with the Marine Division and the 8-8 Marine Brigade over here, that makes it more likely that I'll win the ground combat, in which case he's going to probably send an extra air or naval unit. Anyway, doing the calculation, it works out that I have a better chance of success going it this way. And so what I basically do, and this gets a little tricky here, but I need an air escort, a ZOI escort, to go in with me because there's a lot of Japanese ZOIs there. And so what happens is the Intrepid goes along, and actually we take the battleship as well because it's going to support the landing. So that stack goes in together, and the Intrepid provides a ZOI escort. And so that's legal to move that way because the Intrepid is moving with the unit to the landing hex. Then what I can do is, now that there's a unit there in the landing hex to be supported, moving Franklin like this is legal. If I hadn't moved these guys yet, Franklin couldn't move there without declaring an attack on somebody else, which I don't want to do. So I send these guys all first, then that makes the Franklin move legal because he's now supporting ground units that are already in the assault hex. And then what that does is, if you look at my ZOIs now, I have total ZOI coverage, so that then makes it possible for me to send these Marines in as well. So this is a case where the sequencing of moving of the units is really important to make sure that you can do it legally. In this case, it is all legal, and that's how the attack comes off. And as it turns out, he misses the SR roll, and so we are successfully in there, and we've got an advanced base at this point. After I take Jolo, he plays another OC to reposition and basically pulls out even further from the CBI. What he does is he brings the Korean army from Dhaka over to Manila and sends the 28th Army from Manila up to Seoul. And at the same time, he brings Nachi and the 1st SM Brigade home from Surabaya to Tainan here. So as you can see, what he's doing is he's really getting ready to defend against any attempt that I might make to put a blockade into effect. So he's, as you probably recall, the coastal China cities all have 9, 12 intrinsic, and actually they have still 2 at this point. I think his next turn, his replacements will go down, but he's got good defense for the coastal bases here, so he plugs somebody into Tainan there to make sure that I can't just grab that port, and then he's defending Seoul up here to make sure that I can't grab that. So he's really getting ready to try and stop me from pulling off any kind of blockade victory. At that point, I just have these 3 cards left, and as we discussed, I go ahead and I'm going to play both of these War in Europes, so that is going to put me at +3 down here. So let's go do that. So we go 1 for 1 and that for the other. And then, I don't know, yes we did. We played that card good. We cleared out the FO. So I'm going to actually put Axiom into the FO. And I'm still thinking, the reason I put this into the FO is I haven't totally written off doing something in the CBI. Only about halfway there so far, so I sort of put this in the thought that maybe I would do something in the CBI next turn, depending on what cards I ended up with, and not having a better play into FO, it seemed like a reasonable choice. He's got, through this process, he has 2 other cards left, actually 3 other cards left, and first thing he does is he actually removes South Seas HQ. That goes to the track, and so let's deactivate those. So he removes South Seas HQ, and that goes to the track for next turn. So he's clearly now starting to fall back. And then he just passes twice because, well, he doesn't pass. He actually has to discard cards because he's out of passes. So he discards a couple of cards because his defensive positions are kind of right where he wants them right now. And with me not doing anything else because I'm playing War in Europe, he doesn't have a need to play anything defensively. One of the things that actually neither of us noticed was that the 31st Army normally would be within range of combined fleet, but because combined fleets only at 12 at this point, this is actually out of range. So in attrition, this guy would have died. We didn't catch that until later, and at that point we just left him there and said, well, they're eating a bunch of bananas and coconuts, and they obviously made it through. So that is the 8th turn, in which on the one hand nothing terribly exciting happened compared to last turn. On the other hand, we got out of ISR for the rest of the game. We've got ourselves into positive War in Europe. We're going to get a huge fleet force coming on next turn. So from the and we did grab an advanced base over here in addition to making progress of war. So from the Allied perspective, it was overall not a bad turn at all. And what we need to do is start to look at what we can make out of it and how we might move forward to victory in the Pacific.